in, there was another session. This is a very big conference going on from 2:30 until 3 o'clock. And so we are waiting for some people to come from that session to this one. We will start with some greetings from the two moderators, myself and Professor Sidorova, and then we are hoping to ask everyone to briefly self-introduce themselves. So from the Japanese side, Professor Ikeda from the School of Education will be the first person to briefly introduce herself. She also will be doing a short presentation 15 or 20 minutes later, but we would like for the Japanese participants to also briefly introduce themselves. Just a very short introduction of who you are, what you study, and why you came to this session will be sufficient. So like I just said, we're waiting for some other people to come in. And there may have been a request from the Secretariat. People in Japan are not so good at reading Cyrillic characters. If you know how to change the display, your name display, into Latin characters, that would be a help for understanding who is who. So we got a message from the Hokkaido University Secretariat asking if the host could start recording this session. So I guess that means somebody at Yakutsk needs to start recording.
Okay, they are recording now. They are recording
Great.
now in some environment.
Okay, great.
We are in.
All right, so we are expected to have 19 participants. Right now, there are only a limited number of participants, but I suppose we should probably commence so that we can have enough time to do everything that we are supposed to be doing during this time. So the first person to speak is the official moderator, Professor Sidorova, to give a greeting for this session.
Okay, so we start. We are waiting for the person, but anyway, we'll start. So very nice to see you all here in the Arctic School. Also, very nice to see you here in Yakutsk. At first, хотову форум Катталахтара, нюрен нюргой булохту. Дорогие друзья, добрый день. Рад приветствовать вас на Северном форуме. You are welcome to the Northern Forum here in Yakutsk. Close it. Yesterday.
All right, so thank you very much. Just very briefly, this Northern Forum is part of the Cold Lands Seminar, which is going on from 2:30 until 6 today, the 30th of September. And the Cold Lands Seminar is one item in a 5-day international conference and forum, the Northern Sustainable Development Forum. In the Cold Lands Seminar, this is section 2 on the Northern community, which also has a name in English as SDGs, Environment, Resource Development, and Multicultural Education, which is a new section between Japan and Russia for developing capacity building regarding environmental monitoring in the Russian Far East and North, regional development, including resource development, in other words, education reflecting regional needs and sustainable development goals, infrastructure development, and projects aimed at drawing on history and local culture as resources. So that could include culture in all of its different aspects, such as sports, etc. And finally, social issues, including social issues of local communities, including indigenous peoples, particularly preservation and development of traditional cultures and lifestyles. So this session right now for the next 80 minutes or so is a session to explore common ground and for everyone to get to know one another just in case we are capable of working together in research and in capacity development through supervising graduate students. And toward that end, Sidoroda Sensei and myself, Professor Sidoroda Sensei and myself, we're hoping that we could have everyone give a brief self-introduction. So I have asked my colleague, Professor Ikeda at Hokkaido University, to be the first one to introduce herself, and then I will ask the other people at Hokkaido University to introduce themselves, Professor Kawanobe, Ms. Yoshimoto, and also my colleague, Professor Buntula. So Ikeda Sensei, could you just very briefly introduce yourself?
Thank you, Jeff. Professor Gayman. My name is Keiko Ikeda. I'm working as a faculty of education, and I'm basically working as a historian, in particular pottery culture, sports. But I'm interested in more transnational perspective recently, and also I have another duty and as a chair of the Committee for International Affairs and in the Faculty of Education. So I have recently doing something related to the Sakhalin State University, one of the partners universities. So later, maybe the chairperson give me some introductory times talking about that. But now it's that's all. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So next, I'd like to ask Vice Chancellor Kawanobe to briefly introduce himself. Kawanobe Sensei, yoroshiku onegaishimasu.
Thank you very much for your introduction. Здравствуйте, дорогие друзья. Меня зовут Kawanobe. I belong to the Institute for International Collaboration, Hokkaido University, and I dealing with the international activities in all parts of Hokkaido University. But since the start of the HaRP project, which is the collaboration activities between Russian and Japanese universities, I'm deeply involved in that project. And I am one of the members of the Secretariat of the HaRP project. So that is why I am here. And in the among the sections today, I'm very much interested in the community activities. So that's why I'm in this section. Thank you very much, and I look forward to the productive discussions at this section. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, Ms. Yoshimoto, could we have you introduce yourself?
Yes, can you see me?
Yes.
Thank you. My name is Tamami Yoshimoto. I work for the Hokkaido University HaRP office. But before, actually, I have been abroad for 10 years, mostly in the African region. So I'm not so keen to know Arctic region or Northern region, but I really am interested in Ainu issues and the Ainu. So I went to Upopoi recently, the recently opened museum in Hokkaido about Ainu. So today I look forward to listening to your presentations, and also other Ikeda-sensei as well. And thank you so much for being a moderator and the presenters. Thank you.
Great, thank you. I'm assuming that other people may be here for varying degree of interest. If you were just asked, for example, by me to come, then it's fine for you to just say your name and your specialty. So the last participant from Hokkaido University side, Professor Buntala.
Hello, everyone. Thank you very much for having me here today. Thank you, Dr. Gayman, for sending me the link to join this session. I am from the Research Faculty of Media and Communication. I got hired last year, and my research topic is generally media analysis in various regions of Russia and Japan. So this conference in particular took my interest because Russia and Japan exchange have always been one of my areas that I've been interested in, and I wrote my PhD dissertation with one of the chapters on Russo-Japanese exchange. So I look forward to listening to some of the presentations and the comments. Unfortunately, due to my Russian language teaching schedule, there's very few, there's just a little bit of time I can dedicate to this session, which is extremely unfortunate because this is something I would really like to participate in, but I look forward to participating where I can, and I hope we can establish a more tighter and more involved contacts in the future with our colleagues over in Russia. My research actually took me through Russia to different regions, including Sakhalin and Yakutia, for example, and other regions in the Russian Siberian region in the Far East. Parts of my plan to visit eventually in my research, so I look forward to meeting someone in person eventually. Sorry for taking so much time, and thank you.
Thank you very much, Professor Buntalov. So I see that a few other members from Japan have suddenly come in. Our colleague, Professor Tatsuzawa from the Faculty of Letters, and also Tashiro-san. We're just doing very brief self-introductions. If you could kindly turn your video on and tell us your name and your affiliation, it would be appreciated. Tatsuzawa Sensei, onegai dekimasu ka?
Yes. Thank you very much for. And I'm sorry to embarrass you this time. I'm now coming here because my first session is suddenly closed just now. So this is my second issues. And my name is Shiro Tatsuzawa. I'm an assistant professor in Hokkaido University, and my subject is animal ecology, especially issues between northern small number of peoples in Siberia and wildlife. Wildlife, especially wild reindeer. So I have a small project in Siberia, especially in Sakha Republic, to make a new protected area for hunting by northern peoples of reindeer and wildlife. And now my colleagues in Siberia are longing to some other project for exchanging our knowledge and techniques between Russia and other Asian countries. So please contact with them or me discuss about these issues. Thank you very much, Gayman-san.
Thank you very much, Professor Tatsuzawa. It might, yeah, no problem. It may be a felicitous occasion that Tatsuzawa's other session got closed. So again, this purpose of this session is to put people together, and Tatsuzawa Sensei kindly offered for you to contact him if you are interested in his research. Ms. Tashiro, would it be possible to have you briefly introduce yourself? Tashiro-san has sent a message on chat which says, I'm Yoko Tashiro. I will be in charge of the HaRP program at International Affairs. Sorry, I cannot use the camera or mic. And I am the sixth participant from Hokkaido University. My name is Jeff Gayman, and I am a professor of multicultural education in the Hokkaido University School of Education, and I will be speaking in a moment. So that concludes all of the self-introductions from the Japanese side. Perhaps we can have people briefly introduce themselves from the Russian side as well. And the self-introductions were to last for approximately the first 20 minutes. So maybe we could have everyone shorten their self-introduction to 1 minute or less.
Or less. Okay, thank you. We will try to introduce ourselves briefly. I want Dmitry. Are you here? I can. Василий. Можно пройтись так? Dmitry, are you here? Okay. Well, please, Семенова Люба. do you hear? Is it
Yes.
Любовь Alexandrovna, a very unique department of Northern Studies in our university, and she is very good expert in geography. So she's very important person here. Thank you. Thank you. Then Васильева Татьяна Ниловна, are you here? Татьяна? Okay. With this, please, self-introduction. Очень кратенько. Татьяна, мы вас слушаем. Please.
Здравствуйте, я здесь.
Hello.
Как дела? На русском. Рада быть на английском. Меня зовут Татьяна Юрьевна Васильева, представляю Институт языков и культуры народов Северо-Востока нашего университета. Работаю на кафедре якутской литературы. Интересуюсь вопросами литературного взаимодействия. В частности, если говорить о связях с Японией, то связях с японской литературой, точнее, поэзией.
Яна, it's very interesting, but maybe later when we will discuss. Now just very brief. Thank you very much. Tatiana Vasilyeva, she is from the Department of Sakha Yakut literature, and she will talk a little bit later about the Sakha and Japanese relationship. Here, please, me. I'm Sidorova Lena. I'm from the Department of Cultural Studies, and I'm Vice Director of the Center of the Contemporary Cultural Studies. We work together in one institute with Tatiana Vasilyeva, and I'm moderator today. So I am so lucky with that. Grigoriev Ivan, please, are you here? Ivan, please. Okay, Ivan, please.
Меня слышно?
Да.
Можно на русском сказать тогда? Я просто учился на юриста, мой первый бакалавр, поэтому мне очень интересны права, свободу коренных жителей народов Севера, потому что когда я учился, у нас были несколько дисциплин, которые прямо изучали права и свободы именно коренных жителей. Я сам вроде даже делал какую-то научную статью, но
Ivan, thank you very much. Ivan, thank you. Maybe a little bit later in our discussion. Ivan, you are master student. You are master. Ты студент-магистр сейчас?
Да.
Окей, в сфере?
Да.
Окей. Иван, a master student at the Institute of Modern Languages in International Arctic Region Studies. Arctic Studies. Thank you very much. Starostin Prokopy, please.
Yes.
Please, Прокопий, говорите, пожалуйста. Представьтесь, пожалуйста. Прокопий, вы слышите?
Здравствуйте, меня зовут Прокопий. Я тоже студент Северо-Восточного федерального университета Института запрещенных технологий и региональных. Как слушатель.
Thank you very much. And Prokopy, I think that you can and you need this because you study in this language. Так? Okay. Thank you very much. Prokopy, the student of the Master Institute of Languages and International Studies. Thank you very much. And then, please, I want to introduce also Виктория Власевна, please.
Здравствуйте, меня зовут Михайлова Виктория Власевна. Я работаю на кафедре североведения доцент кафедры североведения, кандидат философских наук, а также я работаю в Академии наук Республики Саха, Якутия, ведущий научный сотрудник. Так? Ну, я интересуюсь значит, такой темой, как северность в самом общем смысле, ну и проводим исследования в Академии наук по коренным народам.
Victoria is a colleague of Любовь. They work together in the Department of Northern Studies, and also Victoria worked in the Academy of Science. The main issue is northernness. Okay, thank you very much. And then please, I want to introduce participants because we are kindly invited in the Arctic School, International Arctic School, and I want to introduce tutors. Andrian and Alena, please, can you introduce yourself?
My name is Andrian Andrasov. We are working here. We are absolutely new school, International Arctic School. We just opened in September, and now we are sitting in our new classroom art. You are first our guests, and we are glad to see you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And Alena, please.
Hello, dear guests. Here's Anna and House of National School, and they account our students. They are interested in Arctic research and support our young researchers.
Please,
could you tell
just
your name?
Hello and name.
Hello, my name is Veronica, and I'm student of International Arctic School because I'm very interested in Arctic culture.
Okay, thank you very much.
Nice to meet you.
Very nice, thank you. Please.
Hello, everybody. My name is Turkaya Valia.
Thank you, Aliyah.
My name is.
Thank you very much for self-introduction. I think that we can go further. Also, I want to say that we have our friends, interpreter Nadia. She always help us in interpretation. Also, there are Vasily who help us too. He is Vasily. Вы можете сюда показать? He helps us to make this communication. Thank you very much, Vasily. So here we are, and I think that maybe it will be a little bit complicated. I mean, because so many unknown people, I enjoy to see you here. I enjoy to see you the Japanese side. But anyway, we are very happy to be all together because the topic of the Northern communities unite us together. Thank you.
Great. All right. Thank you all. And I would like to reiterate Lena Sensei Sidorova Sensei's, Professor Sidorova's words of welcome to you all. It's very good to see you here and to see some of you again. So there has been a little bit of fluidity to the program. I believe that we have 3 or 4 presentations, and I will be one of the presenters, but my colleague from the School of Education, Professor Ikeda, kindly agreed to briefly, for about 5 minutes or so, introduce her own recent research. So, Ikeda Sensei, is it possible for you to do a screen share from your terminal?
Thank you, Jeff. So So good afternoon, everybody. Honestly speaking, I was not planning to give some presentation in this event because I was really busy with this summer for organizing some international congress. It's the really biggest one for me. So, but as I told myself in the introduction, I'm a chair of the committee for international affairs of the faculty of education. So we have some good partnership program with Russian University, in particular Sakha State University. And our program name is the ESD, Educational Sustainable Development Campus Asia Pacific Program, which was run since 2011, and the Sakha State University joined since I think 2016. And that is a 10 days short exchange program between undergraduate students. And also 3 months short exchange program existed, in particular between Sakha State University and other Asian countries. So I'm really delighted to have a good contact through such a program. And in addition, we have started some online and different program in the education. It was done in last November. So I just briefly, what we talked on the online seminar last year, it was connected with Ural State Pedagogical University and Sakha State University in addition to us. So I just briefly showed such a seminar program last year. So may I share some report? So Jeff, can you see this? Okay. It was written in Japanese and English. Sorry, it's not a Russian, but we have a great Russian simultaneous translator in that occasion. So just show you that title of the workshop towards a future joint research project among 3 universities. So we could connect Regional Sakhalsk and Ekaterinburg, mostly 1 year before, and we talked about the wider concept of the education. So Dean of Faculty of this university, I mean the education, Professor Miyazaki, just briefly give a review of the Hokkaido Education Consortium Plan. And also another professor talking about the distance education among upper secondary school in Hokkaido, because just a moment, some notice was shown the I can't see. So Jeff, you can see this request. They say remote control should be declined, but is it okay to continue? So I decline now. Sorry, Jeff, I can't hear what you said.
I think it will be fine for you to continue.
Yeah, so I just put decline for this request. Yeah.
Fine.
And also another professor talking about the PE method in a secondary school. So these are based on the idea. We have a common view between Sakhalin and Hokkaido, because Sapporo is located in the center of the Hokkaido. However, we are different from the metropolitan like Tokyo or Moscow. So if we could something to think together, that is a good occasion in a wider educational view. And also, Sakhalin State University given many good address from the authorities in charge of the international affairs, and also Ural State University or I would say, sorry, pedagogical university, give a lecture about the pedagogical psychologies area. There are very good occasion to listen to what they are researching about. And also another good individual research was reported. So we could share the common view as our educational studies as well, and how it could be contributive to the civil lives, not only in the inside of the institute of the university. We can share how the local people and the local citizens can use our outcome of the research as well. That was 1 year ago. We just started about this collaborative research and education in practice and theory. However, due to the coronavirus, we could not update the information, and also we cannot see each other. Then that is a pity this year, but I hope we could continue this kind of collaborative research together with Russian University. So if you are interested in such a wider area of educational studies, I'm welcome as the chair of the faculty and as to international affairs. That is one thing. So how many minutes is left? Because if I have the time, I just briefly talk about my research. Jeff, is it possible?
So maybe 2 minutes?
2 minutes, okay. I just show you another slide. Can you see this already? No?
We can see.
Okay. So this is what we are talking in the Congress. I myself organized in this summer. I'm very interested in the physical culture. Then I focused on the Olympic issues because without the coronavirus, we could organize the Summer Olympic Games this year in Tokyo. But what I focus on is sustainable development goals issues, because maybe some of you could see this 70 goals. It was famous. Then the first one is a very basic one as a human rights, and the second one is maybe socio-cultural issues, including the economic matters, and the third one would be issues of the earth, including natural science as well. Then I focused on the contradiction between these goals, that is research. Then I just briefly mentioned about the SDGs, and this is an earthquake which was happened 2 years ago and around this time in September. And despite such a disaster measure was so much talked, discussed in here in Sapporo. After that, we quickly move on the big issue of Olympics. That is the Olympics. So much initiative with the economic goals. Also, it was one of the goals for sustainable development goals. But I just focus on how urban development goals and sustainable development goals for conservation of the nature, something, including the earth wishes we talked. So if you are interested in such individual studies, because I'm focused on the sports, that is like an applied science. It is not the discipline of the one studies. Then if we could think about together with many issues of the category, the Marina mentioned in the beginning, in the preliminary sessions, SDGs, environment, resource development, multicultural education. So I welcome, this is just my introduction, and think together, together with the Russian people. That is a very common point, but I would like to induce. That's all. Thank you very much for hearing my presentation.
Thank you very much, Professor Ikeda. So Professor Ikeda just shared with us the history of collaboration between the School of Education, where she and I work, and Sakhalin State University and Ural State Pedagogical University. And then she introduced her own research, which has to do with the social aspects of sports and the influence of sports on society. So if there is anyone who is interested in these topics, please contact with Professor Ikeda. We would be very happy to develop further collaboration. So I am the, excuse me, I'm the next speaker. And my topic is quite different than Professor Ikeda's. Can you see my PowerPoint on the screen? So I am a person who works with the local indigenous people, the Ainu people, and the topic of my research is actually very much one which is determined by the Ainu people themselves. So it diverges from a type of research which is directed by the researcher himself. In my case, my research is very much guided by the wishes of the local Ainu community, and so I am going to be talking today about the challenges of doing this kind of collaborative research with local indigenous communities, which is a very challenging activity. So, I am American and have been working here in Japan for about 30 years. You can see that I got my Bachelor of Arts back in the late 1980s in Asian Studies, but then 2 of my degrees are from universities in Japan. And also, I'm originally from Alaska in the United States, so this issue of northern communities is something which is very close to my heart, and it's very pleasurable for me to be able to speak to the students in the newly established International Arctic School there in Yakutsk. I can see the art in the back of the room. It looks like it might be local indigenous art. So it's very, I'm very happy to be able to see this. So I have been working with the Ainu for 15 years. Originally, I had a classroom focus, but recently my work has shifted to more policy and sociological issues. So, if you have ever been to Sakhalin Oblast, I know that Buntalov Sensei has, then you will realize that just to the south of Sakhalin is where we are in Sapporo, in Hokkaido. So this is probably the closest place in Japan to Russia, and this area is the traditional homelands of the Ainu people, whose current population is estimated to be between 15,000 and 300,000. They were originally a hunter-gatherer society, like all of the indigenous groups there in Saha, who engaged in extensive trade with the Wajin ethnic Japanese to the south, and with the Russians and Chinese to the north. And their culture revolves around a belief in kamui no shiri. In other words, the world of the spirit deities, which they treat with great respect. And so we can say that the heart of Ainu culture is spirituality, which manifests in various ways of sharing, of communing with the spirit deities, the kamui, for example, rinse, which is dance, upopo, which is song, beautiful handcrafts, an extensive oral tradition, and kamui no mi, prayer ceremonies. However, this history of spirituality has been interrupted by subjugation, by the influx of pioneers from the south. So as a result of this, Ainu trade was curtailed. They were forced to work as labor in fish camps. They were dispossessed of their land and resources. Elements of their culture were banned. In education, Japanese language and culture were taught to them, with the result that approximately 150 years later, there has been an extensive loss of language and culture. And because their land and resources were taken away from them, and they were forced to become farmers, they fell into poverty, which led to discrimination against them. So these days, the common phenomenon is for them to conceal their Ainu identity, something which we were talking about in our session yesterday. So if you talk about an overview of them, their characteristics, they live divided between Japan and Russia now. The majority of Ainu people reside in Hokkaido, but their traditional society has been greatly changed due to prohibitions on fishing, hunting, and gathering. In other words, it's illegal for them to fish or hunt without a special permit. Their land has also been transformed into public or privately owned land, and there has been quite heavy pressure to assimilate, to become the same as the mainstream Japanese. So largely we can say that there is no Ainu society left, but only isolated pockets of individuals engaged in praxis of Ainu culture. For example, song and dance. And the majority of Ainu are what we call silent Ainu. In other words, they are quiet about their Ainu identity. And there is a gap between them and people who belong to cultural preservation societies and practice song and dance, or learn a little bit about their language. And so we have to say that inclusion, Ainu culture is limited to that having survived the above harsh history. And also, as a result of the large degree of assimilation of the Ainu culture and society to that of the Japanese society, ethnological research on the Ainu has been virtually impossible since approximately 100 years ago. So, this has serious ramifications for cultural transmission. Those living as Ainu are engaged in occupations limited to the tourism industry, or some of them are artists, and a few of them are musical performers. And there are intense debates about engaging in cultural activities for the sake of money, because the Japanese state arranges cultural subsidies in order to pay people for engaging in their culture. So what kind of research can be done with the Ainu? Japan is a country in which activism has existed in a variety of forms. For example, denunciation, public demonstration, court cases, and critical literature. And for that reason, activism over the past 50 years by Ainu activists has been critical of Ainu affairs being heavily influenced by Wajin Japanese control. So a few Ainu activists have been calling for their right to self-determination, for an official apology from the Japanese government for the historical injustices, which I just explained, to have their ancestral remains repatriated, returned to them from universities and museums, and to have rights to natural resources, including the return of land. And this rights-centered approach by the activists is something which many Ainu feel uncomfortable with. They would prefer to take a more moderate approach to Ainu rights. They say that contemporary Ainu life is one which cannot be separated from that of the mainstream Japanese. And for those reasons, these movement strategies of court cases, litigation, and denunciation, criticizing people, have also been harshly criticized. So there's a dilemma in Ainu society between indigenous legal rights to land and resources and politics, the current policies of the Japanese state. And this is complicated by a history of research in which scientific research was done from the standpoint only of mainstream Japanese people. It was very authoritarian. We are the authorities, and the Ainu don't know anything. So, in order to think about this positioning of indigenous knowledge, for the past 6 years, I have been doing a collaborative research project on articulations of indigenous knowledge in Hokkaido, together with a handful of Ainu cultural practitioners, elders in their 70s and 60s, and people who are employed in Ainu-related occupations. Also, as a result of this, sometimes they come to our Hokkaido University to give lectures in my classroom or in a center like the International Arctic School, which you have there. And on the other hand, I have been taking students through the University School of Education, the Education for Sustainable Development Campus Asia Pacific program, which Professor Ikeda just explained, to a local Ainu community for what is known as field work, and cooperating with Ainu activists who have been seeking repatriation of Ainu ancestral remains from Hokkaido University. So our laboratory also does a great deal of voluntary and service work, approximately 30 days or so per year for the Ainu community, and you can see what kind of work we do in the chart, in the reference documents, in the folder. And in my case, I've been able to have rapport, trust relations with the Ainu people because of the detached relationality possible by me not being a mainstream Japanese person. However, I'm still prone to criticism as an outsider and as a member of the largest university on the island of Hokkaido. So it's always a challenge to work with a minoritized indigenous community. And so I try to respond by being humble, flexible, impartial, and to work with a variety of different Ainu people. And so in conclusion, depending upon geographical location, whether someone is in Russia, or they are in Japan, or they are in the United States, and the historical time period, indigenous peoples of the world have been viewed differently as a social problem, as people to assimilate and to civilize. They have been viewed as a treasured asset whose knowledge and wisdom is something valuable to all of humanity, and they have been viewed as possessors of human rights who deserve to be empowered through their own voice and their own presence in research and education and policy. So my goal has been an achievement of a societal shift in emphasis from and perspective from problem view to the asset and the empowerment stance. And that is a stance which is shared by the graduate students in our laboratory, who are also working towards the same goal, using qualitative fieldwork methods of participant observation and interviews and focus groups on a minority of a number of minority groups and minority ethnic groups, not only here in Japan, but also in the People's Republic of China, and soon other places as well. So thank you very much for your attention. If you have any questions, I'll address those in the discussion session, and I hope to be able to talk more with people. So that's the end of my presentation, and now it's time to move on to the presentations by the members from the Russian side.
Okay, thank you very much. Maybe you'll ask or later.
Maybe afterwards. Sorry.
Yeah. So I need to thank you very much for your presentation. Always, when I see your presentation, I always have so many questions. It means that it's very interesting issue of Ainu in Japan. Maybe we will ask later. Okay. Yes, as a Professor Keda, I want to tell that actually I didn't prepare a presentation for this section, and then I think that we need to show the researches that our university has. Yeah, at first, about northern communities, I mark it red one because the title is Northern Community. The Northern Community, I think that's some umbrella term, because the Northern Community is a huge community which include not only the indigenous peoples, but the people who come here from another part of Russia and who come recently with their industry development and to another reasons. So, another reasons. So at first I want to tell that the so northern community is quite diverse, ethnically, culturally, socially, for instance, is a very huge challenge and some academic issue about the relationship between money companies who come to the north and the indigenous peoples. And so it's very diverse. This term is very huge and really umbrella term. And in my presentation, I want to transfer to the northern communities, for instance, to Russian scholars, it means more something about indigenous people who live here. But we need to aware that indigenous peoples just a part of a huge northern community now in the Arctic zone. So I will talk about some experience, our field work of our university deals with the northern community. And also I want to emphasize that when scholars talk about the northern communities, it depends on how we perceive the life of northern communities, indigenous people. As for me, it's just my opinion, maybe some you will not agree with me. I think that there are some two ways of perception. First of all, some Russian scientists and scholars still are based on some evolutionary approach, эволюционный подход in humanitarian and social science, which was some approach of the 19th century. And according to this approach, the cultures of the indigenous peoples perceived are always that something stable, not very modern and still exotic. I see it's not, it's typically for some writers, journalists, some movie makers, and even for scholars. I see it in some books and notebooks for university students. But at the second time, we can see that so many scholars, indigenous scholars, come to the field of social sciences. And some of them have another point of view. They try to see it as like a very pure culture, some idealistic point of view. So something of indigenous people are very nice, and for instance, traditional knowledge of people is still exists and very something that we all need to study. And also, I think that these two different approaches are based on the paternalism in the policy, in the state policy. So it's just something about very theoretical, and now we transfer to some field work that field work of the scholars of our university. At first, I want to tell about the research with the Herzen Russian State Pedagogical University in St. Petersburg is well known university here in Russia. And we have joint research project. I mean, a joint project with our, we call it not laboratory, but Center of the Contemporary Culture Studies in my institute. It was some sociological research. We studied how religion and media influence the formation of identity. We studied identity of the youth or young generation of Yakutsk. We have been at the Institute of Marine Institute, Here we have a Marine Institute in Yakutsk. There you can see there some students of this institute, and in the Fu and some secondary. Just a way of the field works. And after Yakutsk, after Yakutsk, there was another research in Kolyma. I just want to show you once more how Yakutia is huge, and we with my colleagues, we came to the real northeastern part of Yakutia, to Nizhnya Kolyma, Nizhny Kolymsk. You can see there these rows, deep rows, staying. It's Arctic zone, and it's very interesting for scholars. Please. Next, please. About the Northern community, we will talk about it. I will show some pictures of my pictures of this field work of the Northern community. The pictures of Chersky, and then we go to Kolymska, and Kolymska is the northern community, Arctic northern community, where Chukchi, Lora, Vitlani live. And population of Kolymska population is approximately 700 people. It's in Kolymska on the left-hand side, and Chersky to the right hand side. Please, it's just pictures we need to. Yeah, the village of Kolymsk was founded in 1941. At first, of course, it wasn't like a village. It was a settlement of Yukagirs. You know that Lower Kolyma is a unique place where Yukagirs, the most ancient peoples of the Arctic of Yakutia, live, and they live now in Chukchi, Lower Vitlani. It's very interesting that when I decided to go to Kolyma, I was very surprised that not so many scientists from our university were interested to go there. I don't know, because we more focused to the Sakha culture and not people interested in the minority. I was a very lucky scientist who came to this area. I just some pictures about who live there. They do not look like you when you see in some movies of the Arctic with the fur, with the ice or snow, very, very cold like that. Of course, they still have some traditional activity, but I want to show that, and we write in our articles. You can read it, and find it in the internet. We want to show that the contemporary culture is changed, of course, and sometimes the culture is not such culture as we perceive before. We met some very nice people who are reindeer herders, and one of the topic of research with my colleague Lena Klinovska, she's from the Cambridge University. It was in 2017 in Kolyma, in Khalarcha tundra. It was we prepared some paper. It will be published soon, published yet, about the we examine an encounter between the nomadic family law and reindeer herders who have some traditional nomadic style of life. And we studied how the frame of the nomadic family law, because it's made by the European frames, of course, from European terms, and how it works, how not contradictory, but something come together, real life and law. That the aim of law was to protect this. It was very interesting, and I just briefly in 2 words so you it's yes exactly. Maybe you can see here it's not visible in the right picture. There are reindeers, and the color is, of course, the color of nature. not very bright, but there's a lot of rain and the right. And Chukchi, one of the peoples who try to preserve their traditional way of the sewing and their, because the such leather and such material, traditional materials, are the best to protect from the temperature and climate of. It's we have another researchers too, but I choose these topics because we talk about northern communities. That's why it's not just it's not all of our researchers, but yes, that's all that I wanted to share to you. And I think that maybe Professor Tadzorava, who examines the university, will be interested too, and we will contact later. So everything about the nomadic communities, and Professor Gayman told us about the communities of Ainu. I think that there are some common problems to, it will be some possibility to have a common research. So thank you very much. Maybe if you have any questions. Thank you. Спасибо. Thank you. Then Jeffrey.
Yes.
Professor Gayman, are you here?
Yes.
Yeah.
Can you hear me?
Yeah. Yes, we are here. Here we are. And please, then we transfer to presentation of Victoria. Victoria Mikhailova, and Nadia Nadezhda Akimовna will help us. Okay? Please. Я буду проводить
Lena Sensei.
Yeah.
I see that we have 15 minutes left before this session needs to end. And then after that there is a 20-minute break. But even if we use the break time, we still only have 35 minutes until we need to finish completely.
We have 35 minutes.
Until 4:50 is the very limit of the time that we have.
Я попытаюсь очень кратко тогда рассказать, да, то, что я готовилась так, чтобы надолго, как бы подольше, да, рассказать. Значит, я представляю вам доклад, который готовили мы вместе с теми наук. Это я и Павлова Мария Борисовна. Только мы вместе сделали на полевое исследование. Доклад называется «Северное сообщество. Трехсекторная модель северной экономики на примере села Венгров Нюрнбергского района».
Okay, so
Oh, excuse me. Nadia, could you speak up a little bit louder? It's a bit difficult to hear you, the interpreter.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, can you hear me better?
Yes, that's much better. Thank you.
Okay, good.
Дальше, да? Исследование основано на двух методологических установках. Во-первых, если ранее социальное пространство рассматривалось как гомогенное, то сейчас в социальных науках социальное пространство рассматривается как гетерогенная система, которая состоит из множества частей.
So here we have two methods, and you know that in social studies, earlier the society would be presented as a homogenic, but nowadays the social studies present society as a heterogenic entity.
В этом смысле север или северное сообщество – это понятие множественное, состоящее из различных частей, имеющих с одной стороны свои внутренние особенности, но в то же время объединенных единым качеством северности.
So in that way, the North is represented by many cultures, so to say, and but it has one common thing that we call Northerness.
Во-вторых, мы опираемся на трехсекторную модель экономики, которая была предложена сначала аляскинским экономистом Ли Хаски, а затем нашими российскими учеными Надеждой Юрьевной Замятиной и Александром Николаевичем Ясовым.
So, and we economy is represented by three-sector model economy, and it first developed by Professor Lee Hosky in the United States. Later on, the Russian they are Professor Zamatin and Professor Yavsky.
Наше исследование проходило в марте 2015 года на территории муниципального образования Йенгринский Эвенкийский национальный наследие, который находится в Нерюнгринском районе Республики Саха-Якутия.
So, and our research took place in March 2015 in Iyengra, which is Nyeringri region, which is southern part.
Очень кратко я представлю, значит, картину Йенгры. Да? Площадь территории 1905 квадратных километров. Административный центр село Йенгра. Оно было основано в 1926 году.
So shortly, some characteristics about the Yengrai. It was established in 1920, and it is 1,905 square kilometers.
Село Йенгра является единственным сельским поселением Нерюнгринского района с традиционным укладом жизни.
And the settlement in Yengra is the only settlement that has no agricultural way of living.
Основное занятие жителей села – сельское хозяйство, традиционные отрасли хозяйствования, такие как охота, оленеводство, рыболовство, клеточное звероводство, сбор дикоросов, выделка шкур, шитье традиционной одежды.
So I just name a few that the people usually do traditionally. So it's a agricultural settlement where people hunt and fish, and they raise fur animals, and they also gather wild berries and stuff, and they of course produce their own clothing using the natural materials.
В момент проведения исследования в Йенгра проживало 1206 человек, из них 90% это эвенки.
So at the moment of our research, there were 1,206 people. 90% of whom are Evenki people. Evenki people.
В это время в венгерском наследии насчитывалось 31 родовая община.
And at that time, there were 31 communities that we call natural communities, like traditional communities. So there were 31 of them at the moment of research.
Да. Ну, в тот момент получается, что, например, если посмотреть родовую общину, да, то Это оленеводческое стадо, которое обычно состоит из 13 человек, 9 пастухов и работников.
So when we talk about, when we speak about these communities, they are basically reindeer herders or reindeer husbandry, consisting of 13 people, 9 of which are the shepherds of India, and 3 of them are, or 4 of them are women who take care of.
Мы опросили 55 жителей села Янгра, что составило 5,4% взрослого населения Янгры. 5,4.
So we interviewed 55 citizens, and 80% of
взрослые.
Okay, and 5.4% of which were adults.
Из респондентов 97% занимались традиционными видами деятельности.
So, and 70% of all the responders are the ones who do the traditional life.
По результатам исследования нами было выявлено, да, что последние годы растет влияние корпоративного промышленного сектора на традиционный сектор.
So, as a result of our research, we found out that there is a huge impact of the industrial mining industries onto the traditional way of living.
В основном респонденты отмечали именно негативное влияние промышленного сектора на традиционный сектор.
And the responders basically pointed out the negative impact of the industry on their lives.
Они отмечали, что прямое воздействие деятельности добывающих промышленных компаний на флору, фауну, гидрологию, да, очень негативное, и что влияет на жизнедеятельность именно населения.
And they pointed out that particularly they pointed out that the impact is on the rivers and natural sources and the traditional way of life.
Так, например, уничтожаются оленьи пастбища, загрязняются реки, ухудшается экология, вырубка леса идет.
So, and name few, we can say that the pastures are being destroyed and the rivers are being polluted, and all in all, the ecological situation is deteriorating rapidly.
Ну и здесь, резюмируя, так как очень маленькое время, да, я скажу следующее. Да? Специфика взаимодействия трехсекторной модели. Вот трехсекторная модель, это значит, получается традиционный сектор, значит, это промышленный сектор и это государственный сектор. И вот когда они взаимодействуют вместе, да, значит, все это зависит от численности населения, отдаленности от центра и с той стратегии экономического развития вот, сельской территории.
And in conclusion, I would like to say that this three-sector model, where we see the traditional, the community itself, the industries, and the state sector, we see how they communicate with each other, and of course it depends on the population, the number of people who reside, and how they interrelate.
Чем меньше село, тем больше сближение и гибридизация между секторами. Гибридизация, то есть как бы взаимопроникновение между секторами. Например, в данном случае получилось так, что те же самые, например, члены родовой общины, они работали в школах, они работали, например, в администрации. То есть, получается, здесь гибридизация произошла между традиционным сектором и государственным сектором.
So when we speak about the the smaller the population of a village, of a settlement, the higher so-called hybridization, if I can say this word in English. If it is not understandable, could you please tell me? So that means that, when you have a small number of people, they tend to do a lot of things like they might do the traditional way of life, but at the same time they can be representatives of the state organizations, or they can work in the industry. So that way you see how the hybridization happened.
И потом оказалось, что социальная сфера сельских поселений на севере, да, гораздо шире, чем, например, в других обжитых, климатически комфортных регионах России.
Социальная сфера шире.
Функция социальной сферы сельских поселений на севере шире.
So, and the functions that are allocated for this social sphere are much wider than of those in the cities and in the city or the other region.
И, значит, следующий вывод такой, да, чем малолюднее население, тем универсальнее использование объектов социальной инфраструктуры. Например, школа становится своего рода публичным местом, где проходят различные мероприятия, начиная от собрания, заканчивая до съездов. Как раз когда мы были, там проходил съезд эвенков.
So, and the smaller the community,
Чем малолюднее население, тем универсальнее использование объектов социальной инфраструктуры.
So the smaller the community, the smaller the village, the the functionality of using the social objects are getting kind of more varied, so to say. So, for example, when they were in Yangra, the building of school was used for many different activities. For example, for some meetings from other, not school meetings, but administrative meetings or elections or something like that.
И в целом, последнее, да, нужно отметить, что кумулятивный эффект от проектов корпораций промышленных может принести значительные необратимые экономические, социальные изменения в жизни села Янгра.
So, and in conclusion, I would like to say that the cumulative effect of all the industrial activities in that area might have, might have very negative and non-restorable effect on the community. So that's our conclusion.
Спасибо.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for your presentation about Yangra. It's very interesting that you focus on one settlement of Yangra and try to purify the ordinary life of it. But one northern community, even it's in the south. So thank you very much. And please, Любовь Alexandrovna, we will go to another presentation. Любовь Alexandrovna, please. And we have, so Jeffrey, how long it can be? So 5 minutes, not.
So yes, if the presentation was 5 minutes, then we would have approximately 10 minutes for discussion.
Okay, we need this discussion anyway, because what is the goal? It is actually the communication, not just focus.
So let me present you my presentation. So it's about geographic information system as a tool for socioeconomic monitoring of the indigenous peoples of the Sakha Republic.
Республика Саха-Якутия занимает особое место на карте Российской Федерации, обладает богатыми запасами природных ресурсов, и также отличается суровыми природно-климатическими условиями.
So the Republic of Sakha is a very special place on the map of the Russian Federation, and of course it has a lot of mineral resources or subsoil resources. It is known for a very harsh climate.
В настоящее время в республике, в том числе и на территориях традиционного предоположения, пастбищ, охотничьих коренных народов ведется крупномасштабное освоение минеральных и топливно-энергетических компаний.
So nowadays, in the territories of traditional use or traditional natural resource traditional use, there are activities are done by big corporations, industrial corporations that are extracting subsoil minerals.
В рамках промышленного освоения зачастую затрагиваются права и интересы коренных народов.
So when we have this kind of industrial development on our territories, of course the rights of the indigenous peoples are being hampered.
Один из современных инструментов практической реализации социально-экономического управления устойчивого развития коренных народов в условиях промышленного освоения является использование географических систем.
So in this regard, geographic information systems or GIS are one of the tools for the practical implementation of socio-economic monitoring and the management of sustainable development of the indigenous north, of the north, and in terms of industrial development.
Информационная система – это информационная система, обеспечивает сбор, хранение, обработку, доступ, отображение и распространение пространственно координированных данных.
So the main goal of GIS is to create spatial data of the territories of traditional nature use, community lands and areas with a high population of indigenous.
Одной из задач ГИС в рамках социально-экономического мониторинга коренных народов является создание базы пространственных территорий традиционного предопользования, земель, объединений, мест компактного проживания коренных народов.
So one of the functions or one of the tasks of the GIS using of the GIS technologies is to create spatial database that includes information on territories of traditional use, hunting areas of the indigenous peoples, lands that belong to the indigenous peoples, and the lands that belong to the industries and national and municipal entities, and as well as the places with the high density of population that are indigenous people.
В результате у нас мы создали, в зависимости от задач, ставили карты тематические на всю территорию Якутии, где проживают коренные народы, где расположены территории традиционного природопользования и места компактного проживания.
So as a result of our work, we have made this map compassing the whole territory of our republic, where you can see different themes like territories of the traditional nature use and other stuff.
Также вот использованием уже статистических данных, карт национального состава коренных народов.
So, and here you see the maps of the ethnic groups of the different indigenous peoples of the Republic.
На нынешнем уровне развития роль ГИС не ограничивается сбором и хранением, передачей информации. Современный ГИС становится инструментом для моделирования природных, хозяйственных, социальных процессов.
And in conclusion, I would like to say that these GIS technologies are not only for monitoring, but also for modeling stuff. And it is possible to implement social economic monitoring and predict development in space and time.
На самом деле работа продолжается, этот процесс не заканчивается. На данный момент в результате у нас составлены тематические карты, также собраны и проанализированы статистические данные, характеризующие социально-экономические.
So, of course, our work is continuing. We have made these thematic maps as well as gathered some statistics, and you can actually see. Что было?
Собраны материалы, статистические данные, характеризующие социально-экономическое положение.
And they characterize the socio-economic, state of the indigenous people.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Надежда. Thank you very much, Александра. Ой, Любовь Александровна, я страшно. Нет, только либо волнуетесь, сыночек, либо мужик. Okay, thank you very much. But actually, I have some question, maybe a question to Любовь Александровна. So it's, if I'm not mistaken, it's something like visualization of official statistics. It's some visualization, it's not original mapping, but visualization of statistics that you get from the Department of State Statistics. For instance, I'm very interested in some data, not governmental, but I cannot find in your system. Like that? Ну вот, я правильно понимаю, что вот то, что вы делаете, это визуализация данных государственной статистики. Это не мэппинг в чистом виде, когда вы даете оригинальные данные, а вы визуализируете то, что есть. И если этого нет в статистике, этого нет и у вас. Да?
В чистом виде статистика не всегда в этом используется. Мы иногда просто анализируем данные, которые в последней карте были. Это уже рассчитанные.
Это ваши?
Да, там уже доля проживающих среди в республике. Это надо рассчитывать. Она просто по республике. Да? И тех же эвенков, которые проживают и по и по наследкам. По территориям традиционного продукта. Это надо уже рассчитывать.
На основе статистических данных?
На основе
что администрация дает?
Нет, по переписям, да.
По данным переписи.
Да.
Okay. The question was that some obstacle that we anthropologists we have when we come to some place. We sometimes need in some maybe another data, not statistical, not governmental. And that's why the question was, do they just try to make visualization of this statistics data? But Любовь Александровна answered that not just only state official sources. So это очень интересно, потому что это же big data. It's something like about big data to make other for projects. Okay, so we will start to. We need to. It's a last presentation, and now we can pass. And if somebody have any questions, please. Yeah? Правильно, да, говорю? Верно? Right? Okay, we need to go further. Okay, any questions or comments, please?
So I'd just like to thank all of the presenters from the Russian side for your very invigorating and stimulating presentations. And personally, I find a lot of commonalities, keywords, the keyword of community, culture, and also this relation between industry, state, and local communities, as well as in your approaches to research. I think that all of the approaches which were employed, the perspectives which were used in all three presentations could mesh well with the research which is being done at the School of Education at Hokkaido University. So just a comment. I could go into more details, but since it's just a comment, then I will leave my comment at this level.
Он сказал, что очень слов, которые для них это вот община, и он сказал, что это вот трехсферный вот этот анализ, который вы ведете, и анализируете общину отдельно, ну, как бы их составляющие, это тоже вот, но я бы, конечно, много комментировать дальше, но так как мало времени, я вот на этом такой.
Okay, thank you very much. And Jeffrey, I want to. I have one question maybe to Professor Ikeda, if she's still here. We are now in the Arctic School, and there are tutors Alena and Andrian, and also girls Veronica, Aliya, and Oksana. Actually, I think that they expected something about what possibility do they have, for instance, to connect with the, for instance, Professor Ikeda, your school. So your school is school for students of universities, or you have some project where, for instance, secondary school, this new innovative tool can be involved. What you or maybe your colleague Professor Ikeda can say about that?
Ikeda-sensei, you need to turn on your mic. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you so much for the very interesting presentation. And as I just introduced our faculty's project, it is ESDs and it has a wider meaning in it. And also, I try to focus on individual studies as some case studies of my own. Anyway, I think the culture, identification, or social way is all relevant to the economic development and other issues. And also, we can focus some commonalities in discussing about the some contradictory effect as well. So, of course, this is talking about the graduate course students exchange program as well. So this is the first beginning of the we discuss our discussion. I think the topic is really welcomed in a wider scope. As this is one of the multicultural issues, and we can focus on the any aspect. So in the first impression, I'm really interested in. I think Jeff is having mostly the same idea. Yeah. What do you think, Jeff?
I agree, is the question about other faculty working at our School of Education who are working in secondary education? That was your question?
Yeah, about secondary education.
Yeah.
Are there any researchers who have ideas about
secondary education?
Yeah. So it is very difficult to explain about our uniqueness with the Faculty of Education because it is an education school. I mean the faculty, but we are not producing the program for the teacher.
It's not a teacher training program.
Yeah, teacher training. But in some discipline, like a PE course and social studies, we have some course. We can give a license for the teaching training in the secondary school. But in a wider scope, including social studies, adult educations, we can focus on the wider educational sphere. In that scope, we can, cover our relationships through the research and also practical matters as well.
Although I didn't touch upon it in my presentation, my research has been on Ainu education, education for minority ethnic communities in all of its facets, including secondary education. So it's an interest of mine, although I haven't been doing any research on this topic since I came to Hokkaido University in the past 8 years.
Any questions you have, John? Okay, let me say. Topics and so interesting aspect about Ainu people, right? So Professor Jeffrey Gayman, so could you tell us what language do Ainu people speak? Have they all their own language, native language? And is there some research of language?
Thank you very much for that question. Yes, the Ainu people do have their own language. These days, it's recognized by UNESCO as a critically endangered language. There are only a handful of people in their 80s and 90s who still speak it. There are secondary language learners who are on the increase, but it's and language revitalization efforts, as well as research by one or two of my students into Ainu language revitalization, but it's a very challenging situation.
Well, any questions? Our participants Prokopy, our master students, Prokopy, and okay, Prokopy, are you here?
Excuse me? So the concluding plenary session has already started. So I'm sorry to disturb you, but if you could finish this link and then enter the other link for the concluding session now.
Okay, well, thank you very much for participating in this section. And I hope that we will meet once all together in this very nice school, Arctic school. Thank you very much to you that you invite us to this class with the nice pictures, with the nice pupils. So thank you very much. Thank you to Jeffrey Gayman for the moderation work. Thank you to Nadia and Vasily, and all. Thank you very much to our friends, colleagues from University of Hokkaido. We appreciate very much your participation. Thank you very much. See you.
Mm-hmm. Yes, thank you very much to everyone, and we, Tatiana-san, other people who we are seeing for the second time. It's very good to be able to see you as well. Congratulations on the establishment of your new International Arctic School, and we're looking forward to being able to meet again, perhaps online soon. So thank you everyone for your time in this session, and it sounds like the concluding plenary session has already started, so we can join that session through a different Zoom link. Thank you very much for today.
Thank you very much.